What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journos, Comics, and Pop Culture. It is another Wednesday. That means it is A1 Wednesday, but I got a really cool video today for you all. Now, look, a lot of us collectors are pretty savvy on the hobby, so many of you may know the topic that I'm going to be discussing today, but still, I'm all about giving information to new collectors or individuals coming into the hobby that might not know as much as a lot of us. And I always say this about this hobby: there is no wrong question to ask. There are no stupid questions to ask. And too often do I see people on social media forums or public forums where collectors ask a question that maybe most of us know, and they get laughed at or they get talked down to. So I'm here to say, collectors, new collectors that still want to get educated on things that you don't know about, ask the questions. Nobody would know anything if we didn't ask questions. And remember, guys, all of us that do know, we didn't know at some point in time either. So with that being said, guys, for A1 Wednesday, we're talking about Newsstand and Direct. But before I get into that, guys, check out A1 Comics. Their link is below. Go follow them on Instagram. Subscribe to them on YouTube. They're also on Twitch. Wednesday night, so if you're watching this tonight, check them out. 6 p.m. Pacific time. They have a live sale going on every Wednesday and Fridays. So big shout out to A1 Comics. With that being said, guys, let's get into this topic. So the question: what's the difference between Newsstand and Direct? So again, for all those that know, hey, be humble. This is for those that really need to understand the difference here, to better their journey and knowledge within the hobby. All right, guys, the Newsstand comic book is basically your standard comic book since way back in the days, since comic books were published and distributed to your newsstands. Now, I don't know how many newsstands still exist out there. I know where I'm at, there's not many. You still see them in movies, like in New York's on the sides of the street and whatnot. But newsstands also started becoming incorporated inside businesses as well. Say, for example, grocery stores or even Barnes and Nobles for their magazines. Those stands are technically considered newsstands, and what you see on them were at least newsstand distributions. So basically, your comic book for many decades were newsstands. Simple and plain. Nothing else. All right? They never had a barcode on them. There was nothing that differentiated them from anything else because it simply was these. You would have reprints in your early days, like the Golden Car record reprints, right? Where you really couldn't differentiate for the most part, especially looking at the cover, if they were a reprint. But your standard comic was indeed a newsstand distributed comic book, okay? That started changing mid-70s. I won't go too much into the history of that, but it was really something that changed the game, that changed the industry, and really helped the industry evolve in almost a dying market. And yes, that's right, guys. People thought the comic book market was dying many different times in the past. It's not just now for all those naysayers that say the comic books are dying and all that stuff. We've been there, we've done that, and comic books always seem to come out the other end. So, mid-70s, the direct market started happening, guys. The direct market were books that were... Let me try to get in. Where are my direct options? Oh, here we go. Right here. So, the direct to the distributors, right? And the original ones looked like this, so you could tell the difference. They had a barcode, but they had a line through them. So, for most of your books in like the late 70s that were direct, might have this line through the barcode next to, say, a newsstand at that point where they were getting the barcodes, okay? Once the direct market hit, the newsstands started implementing the barcode. Directs didn't need the barcode. And another thing that they changed, especially for Marvel, was the price box, as you can see right here. you got the price box and the number of the issue in 2 squares. Right here, you got the diamond, and a lot of people ask, a lot of new collectors, what's the difference? Why does this one have a diamond and not the square boxes? That's why your diamonds will be your direct copies, okay? What started happening, I believe, if I have my information correct off the top of my head, Marvel started getting creative, and DC followed this later on. They started getting creative in putting pictures instead of just crossing a barcode out. So a lot of us, especially those who grew up in the 80s and 90s, we were big on the, we had the Spider-Man images, the Captain America images, and then in the 90s, we had the 30th anniversary of Spider-Man. I think it was the 50th anniversary of Captain America. Those are really cool images that they put in the direct market barcode slots, right? And again, there's your diamond. So again, barcode, simple and plain. And again, so you got another Archie publisher here, Newsstand. You have the barcode. Now, some direct edition books didn't have barcodes at all. I should have brought one of those out to show you guys. But say for this book right here, if this was the direct edition, it wouldn't have anything. It wouldn't. So not all publishing companies hopped onto what Marvel was doing with keeping the little rectangular box and putting an image in it. DC did it. And then in the early 80s, when DC changed their logo, they filled it with, I think it was called the New and Improved DC. And they had the new DC logo in there. So yeah, so guys, okay, so here's the thing to know about the direct market next to Newsstand, okay? So there's a lot of talk, and people ask this question too, well, are newsstands more valuable? It's not just black and white. So when the direct market came about in the mid to late 70s, there were still more newsstands printed and distributed than there was direct, all right? Now, newsstands still at that point were, probably handled more than, say, your directs that went straight to your LCS stores. So you still might find a lower percentage of really high grade near mint books of, say, your later Bronze Age books or early Copper Age books. But still, there was more newsstands at that point in time than there was direct, okay? Now, through the years, you start going into the early 80s, the direct market started growing, and you started seeing larger print runs distributed of the direct, and newsstands started shrinking a little bit. It wasn't until about the mid-80s that the markets kind of evened out, and you had about the same amount of directs as the same amount of newsstands. And going into the late 80s is where you started seeing newsstand shrink and that direct market really boom. And once you hit like 80, 88, 89, and 90, the direct market copies were really up there. Your newsstands started becoming more rare and more rare. So that's why when you look at, say, like a book like, let's take, for example, Uncanny X-Men 266 that came out in 1990. That book in a newsstand is probably going to be more sought after, especially in a high grade, because at that point, you had a lot more direct issues, right? And you had a lot more direct issues that were kept in high grade, where there was a minimal amount of newsstands, and to find a newsstand that was actually kept in a high grade is going to be more sought after because they're more scarce on the market. All right, so when you look at early on in the direct market and you say, well, so there was a very limited amount of direct editions. Does that mean that the directs were more valuable? Not really, guys. So don't get it twisted to where, just because they're more rare equates to them being more valuable. And the simple reason why that is, like your early directs, even in high grade, aren't necessarily going to be more valuable. Why? Simply because there's not really a demand for it like there is the more sought after later newsstands. And that's just how it is. I don't make that decision. It's the consumers and the collectors stating what they demand with their purchasing power, with their money, and how they spend their money, and what they are demanding on the market. So you got to keep in mind, even though there was less directs than newsstands in the early days of direct, finding a newsstand in a high grade is still probably more feasible, or more, excuse me, not feasible, but is more sought after and rarer to do. Finding a newsstand in a high grade in those early days is still going to be sought after more than finding a early direct, because the directs were in more of an isolated environment where they did not get manhandled. Okay. Now, another thing that I want to talk about before I go into more of the evolution of the newsstand and direct is another thing to look out for, guys. And I have a book right here, are the Whitman variants. Okay. And I have a Star Wars #1 right here, Whitman variant. And it even says reprint on it. Okay. And some people are like, well, it's got the diamond, right? So does that mean, so is this a direct market book? No, not really. This is something of its own. And usually the Whitmans had no barcode at all, not even a barcode with a line through it. These books came in your 3-packs for the most part, that were at your Walmarts or maybe some grocery stores, or you know, I don't know what stores back there may have carried these, like not a Montgomery Wards, but Woolworths or something like that. You know, all these stores that aren't around today. Well, you know, besides Walmart, right? These were found in your 3-packs. So just like you have the Walmart exclusives today, where you have like the 3 or 4 packs, they do have barcodes, right? But they have their own unique barcode. So even though the cover may be the same as what you find at your LCS or whatnot, the barcode is unique to the Walmart 3-pack. So back in the day, Whitman had to deal with these brick and mortar businesses like Walmart, to where they have the market directly to themselves. They came in packs of 3. That's why there was no barcode. That's why they were considered reprints, and they were distributed by Whitman. All right, so that's why they're called the Whitman variants. DC had the same thing for the Whitman variants. They did packages like that even before the direct market, and you don't see any box on some of the older DC Whitmans. The thing that you could be able to tell is some of them will have the Whitman logo, and they won't have the issue number on the cover. You'll have to open the page up and look at you know, the print on the splash page there, and read what actual issue of Superman or Justice League that book is. So good thing to keep in mind that the Whitman variants are completely different than your newsstands and your directs. All right. All right. So fast forward, we're in the 90s, right? And you know, the direct market is the bulk of the market. That's where it's at. You still got your newsstands. And, you know, if it's a key book, your newsstands in high grade are most likely going to command a bit of a higher value. So let's go, you know, we go into the 2000s, and, you know, the newsstand continued to shrink. And what they would do at that point in time, because they went away, especially Marvel, went away from the, you know, having the little box with the image. What they started doing is they started writing direct edition. All right. Direct edition. That clarified that it was a direct, but it still had its own barcode. All right. And let me show you guys something else too. Oh, it's not here. It's not here. Here it is. All right. So let's look at a Star Wars book distributed by or published by Dark Horse. This is a newsstand edition. Okay. Now, this barcode is unique to the newsstand, and it says Star Wars Universe, whereas the direct edition says, oh shoot, what does it say? It says something else. I think it says direct. It says direct. It says direct, where this says Star Wars Universe. So that's how they differentiated it going into the 2000s. A little harder to tell, but if you just look at that barcode, you'll still realize which one it is. Now, Moving forward, Marvel basically got rid of Newsstand in 2013, and DC held on to some of their newsstands until I believe 2017. I think when they did the it might have been when they did the rebirth. But so basically, Newsstand, unfortunately, is a thing of the past. When you look at all your new books, you have one barcode, and there's no differentiation between direct or Newsstand. These are all coming the direct format. So again, but you do have the differentiation between your Walmart exclusives, where they have the different barcodes. So there it is, guys. I hope that helped some of you guys out that weren't maybe extremely knowledgeable or savvy on the difference between direct and Newsstand. There is a history to it. So there's understanding the facts of what they are, and then there's also the value behind them, okay? Now, like I said, just because something is a newsstand doesn't mean it's going to correlate to being more valuable than its, you know, direct counterpart, or vice versa for those early directs. But here's the thing. This is my advice, and I'll close on this. If you have a book that's a key book, okay, and you have the option of going with a higher grade, and one of them's a newsstand and one of them's direct, and say there's a direct in a 9.6, and say there's a newsstand in a 9.4, I would always get the higher grade. I don't care if it's a direct or a newsstand, get the higher grade. Of course, if it's, you know, you're comparing value and, you know, the price is right, all right? Now, if there is the same grade of a book and they're the same price, I would go with the newsstand, always. If there's the same grade of a book and the newsstand is a little bit higher, I wouldn't necessarily just go with the newsstand. Personally, for me, I would look at what era the book's from. So I would say, you know, okay, is it from the mid to late 80s or early 90s? Because if it was, say, for example, there's an Uncanny X-Men 266. Say there's a 9.6 that's a newsstand and a 9.6 that's a direct, but say the newsstand is $25 more. I might buy that newsstand for $25 more. If it's an early newsstand, if it's a newsstand from the late 70s or early 80s, and it's more than a direct copy that's the same grade, I probably would stick with the direct. I wouldn't see it being worth it spending more money, unless it was like a few dollars more. So that's my take, guys, when looking at the value of these things. So again, I hope that that was, you know, some good information to some of you guys. Let me know your thoughts below. Let me know if you did not know some of these things, if you have any further questions regarding newsstand versus direct. And again, guys, A1 Wednesday, go check them out. 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. IG live sale, guys. Every Wednesday, every Friday. Check them out. Their information is below. Give them a sub and a follow. Thank you all for watching. If you aren't subscribed to the channel, please do so yet. And until next time.